Hello and welcome. I'm Srima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX. Well, let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The U.S. Special Envoy Tom Barak has hailed a new agreement between the Syrian government and the Syrian Democratic Forces as a historic milestone. The deal was also welcomed by French President Emmanuel Macron and Kurdistan's region President Nechirvan Barzani and is being framed as a step towards unified Syria. According to a statement from the Syrian presidency, UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara held a phone call with each other to discuss strengthening bilateral cooperation, regional developments, and potential UAE support for Syria's reconstruction and investment. US President Trump signals restraint on Iran, saying he hopefully won't need military action and plans direct talks, while Pentagon officials affirm readiness in Europe. The EU brands Iran's Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist group, sparking protests in Brussels and warnings from EU leaders that the region cannot afford another war. Following US pressure, the ruling aims to shift control over the strategic waterway in Panama, marking a significant geopolitical development. China warns to take appropriate measures. Trump continues trade war with Canada, with renewed threats of decertifying Canadian-made aircraft and charge a 50% tariff on those planes. Towns in Australia's southeast swelter in temperatures close to 50 degrees Celsius as wildfires rage through parts of rural Victoria. Uganda's Army Chief Muhoozi Kainerugaba has apologized to the United States after accusing the U.S. Embassy in Kampala of helping opposition leader Bobi Wine evade the arrest. The incident comes as tensions rise after President Yoweri Museveni won a seventh term with recent raid on opposition leader Wine's home, while Wine remains in hiding. According to a government statement, Burkina Faso's military government has dissolved all political parties, phasing out more than 100 groups. Authorities said party assets will be transferred to the state and a draw law sent to the transitional legislature, framing the move as necessary for national unity. Now for this hour, we start with UK and China. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said engagement with China is already paying off. Speaking in Shanghai, Prime Minister Starmer told Chinese and British business leaders the atmosphere has changed and new opportunities are opening up. He has said engaging with China is key to restoring Britain's role as an open, outward-looking trading nation on the global stage. Asked about criticism from US President Donald Trump, Prime Minister Starmer said it would be foolhardy not to engage with Beijing. China has pushed back strongly against US warnings. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun said Beijing is already to deepen cooperation with Britain and other countries based on mutual benefit and win-win results. Let's listen into what the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has shared.
This evening, this is a historic visit to China, the first by a British Prime Minister in 8 years. And we've come very much in the spirit of engagement, of resetting, and setting out a consistent, long-term, comprehensive and strategic partnership. And yesterday in Beijing, we had really productive bilateral meetings, including with President Xi, and we were able to open up opportunities for both of our countries and resolve issues between us. And already I think the atmosphere has changed. The opportunities are opening up, and that's the great prize of engagement. This is an expression of the United Kingdom as an open, outward trading company, making sure that our place is back on the world stage with the necessary relations that we need.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Keith Vaz. He's a former British minister, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mr. Vaz, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how significant is that there's so many bilateral and warming of relationship has happened regardless of US's warnings?
Well, I think that there's a little bit of exaggeration here. Of course, it's a very, very important visit because no British Prime Minister has visited for 8 years, and we've had quite a few since that. I suppose what Keir Starmer means, it's historic because it's the first time a Labour Prime Minister has visited in over 20 years. So from that point of view, it's a very important visit, and it's one that he has been planning very carefully. So good luck to him in terms of the fact that he wants to spin it as a historic visit, and one that will make a big difference between our relations. I think there's really nowhere for him to go except to China. In this sense, he can't keep popping off to America, because all that happens is he gets criticized by President Trump and Vice President Vance and other people who say that Britain has gone to the dogs, and therefore, they have to find the time to do deals with the Americans. So what this proves is that the British Prime Minister can go to a country like China, and there can be some good deals made in respect of these matters. And there is no question also that something good has come of it. They've signed a number of agreements. Before he came to Beijing, they had approved the new Chinese embassy in London, near London Bridge. So the Chinese must have been very pleased with that. It's going to be the largest embassy of any country in the world based in London. So they're very pleased with that. There's more students coming to Britain from China than there are from any other country in the world, including India. So for all those reasons, the tightening up of relations has been very warmly welcomed by both sides.
Right. Yes, about the embassy thing, it seems like, British government, or Keir Starmer in particular, has decided to put a lot of things under the rug for now, including the Uyghur Xinjiang province thing. So what is the significance of this China lifting also travel restrictions on British lawmakers and all the things I've lined up now?
Oops. Sorry.
Yes.
Well, I think that there have been compromises. There's no question of that. Various compromises have taken place, and that's what, unfortunately, you have to do. In opposition, Labour was quite critical of the human rights record of the Chinese regime about the situation in Tibet, and the fact that certain people have been treated in a particular way. This did not come out in the discussions because Britain needs China probably more than China needs Britain. And now that Mark Carney has gone there, the Prime Minister of Canada, and had such a successful visit, I think that they've decided that they're all going to go there and visit him. And Xi Jinping is going to be feted by all the G7, G8 leaders, other than the President of the United States. So I think it's in everyone's interest to talk up this particular activity and the fact that this visit has taken place.
Right. And, as travel restrictions on British lawmakers have been lifted, but why has the UK said it will not lift its own sanctions on Chinese officials?
Well, that is a question you need to put to him. It's a very valid question and an important one. And I think China will be expecting that should be addressed very quickly.
Right. And last but not least, how do you think US will, or President Trump will say now that, UK has decided to warm up its relations with China, and regardless of US's warnings?
Well, I think that he has to say that, President Trump, because he has caused this warmth of relationship between the two countries, and the warmth of relationship between Russia and the EU as well. They would prefer, I think, under all circumstances, for there to be no relationship with China. But you can't do that because this is now the only game in town. So this has to happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vaz, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us. Now looking at Africa, South Africa has expelled Israel's top diplomat, Ariel Seidman, accusing him of violating diplomatic norms and making insulting remarks against South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. Seidman, Israel's charge d'affaires, was declared persona non grata and given 72 hours to leave the country. He's accused of using official social media platforms to attack the president and of inviting Israeli officials to South Africa without prior approval. This diplomatic move comes amid strained relations between the two countries, particularly after South Africa accused Israel of a genocide against Palestinians in the International Court of Justice, a charge Israel has denied. Seidman has been appointed last year, also serves as the charge d'affaires for several neighboring countries. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Keith Vaz. He's joining us live from London. Now, where does this lead us about the relationship between South Africa and Israel?
Well, I'm surprised the Israeli ambassador was still in South Africa anyway, because as you know, South Africa was leading the charge at the International Court of Human Rights to get Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, to The Hague and to begin a prosecution of him. This never happened. And I thought that would be curtains for South Africa. I was surprised there was still an ambassador there. I think that the fact that he's criticised the head of state is enough to get him rebuked, and that is exactly what's happened. Obviously, President Ramaphosa has felt this shouldn't have been an insult. Therefore, there's no reason why he should be there. So he's been asked to leave. I'm not sure what kind of volume of work the embassy in South Africa did, but the fact is, whatever it did, it can probably now hand to another country who will have to take on the consular services, because there's not much else that can be done now.
Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Vaz. Please stay with us as we have a breaking news coming in regarding this. Now, in a tit-for-tat move, Israel has expelled South Africa's charge d'affaires in response to the expulsion of its own senior diplomat by Pretoria. Israel's foreign ministry has called South Africa's actions false attacks and a unilateral, baseless step, declaring South Africa's senior diplomatic representative, Minister Shaun Edward Bijneveld persona non grata. Bijneveld has been given 72 hours to leave Israel. Now we welcome back Mr. Vaz. He's joining us live from London. Thank you very much, Mr. Vaz, for staying with us. Now Israel has done the same. What can you say?
Well, I'm not surprised, Asuma. This is exactly what happens if you send the ambassador out of the country. Then the next thing is that your ambassador gets sent out of the country, and that's exactly what's happened here. It'll take some while to get relations between the two countries back to normal, and it means all their diplomatic efforts need to be handled by another country. In the meantime, they both made their point. I would imagine South Africa's point will be made in a much louder way. It has more allies in the world than has Israel. But that's what happens when you decide to remove the...
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Vaz, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to Middle East, according to Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, Turkey is closely reviewing an integration agreement between the Syrian government and Kurdish-led forces. Speaking at a press conference in Istanbul, Fidan has emphasized that genuine integration is in Syria's interest and both parties are already aware of its conditions. This comes amid ongoing efforts to stabilize the region. Let's listen into what Hakan Fidan has shared.
24 Ocak'ta uzatılmış bulunan bir çatışmasızlık süreci yaşanmakta. Bugün de entegrasyon konusunda bir mutabakata varıldığını duyduk. Gece itibariyle bize mesajlar gelmişti. Bu mutabakatı tabii ki yakından inceliyoruz. Gerçek bir entegrasyon Suriye'nin yararınadır.
Additionally, French President Emmanuel Macron has expressed support for the implementation of the ceasefire agreement in Syria, congratulating both Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, not Bashar al-Assad, but Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa and General Abdi on the development. Now for this, we welcome back Mr. Keith Vaz. He's a former British minister, joins us live from Dubai. Thank you very much, Mr. Vaz, for staying with us. Now, Turkey has welcomed or is closely reviewing this integration agreement between Syria and Kurdish-led forces. Is it doing so because it benefits them? Yes, it benefits them.
Well, I think it does do it because everyone wants peace in the region. And don't worry about the fact that you've just organized a media coup and replaced the president of Syria with someone else. You quickly put him back in his place, because that's been the problem with Syria. It's had so much changes in leadership. Nobody actually knows precisely who's in charge. At the moment, as you said, those who are running Syria need to have a ceasefire, and they need some kind of proper control over their country. And that is what's been welcomed by the Turkish government and by Emmanuel Macron, because France has a particular interest in that part of the region. So I think this is a good thing. We should support the ceasefire and make sure that it holds and that it is successful, because there's nothing worse than it slipping back into a civil war. That would be in nobody's interests. And that's why it's important that it should be supported by all concerned. And hopefully this will get the country back on track.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Keith Vaz for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news from Dubai. Thank you very much. Now we move on to next news. The United Nations has reported that at least 170 civilians were killed in over 400 military airstrikes in Myanmar during its 2-month election period. The airstrikes, which took place between December 2025 and January of this year, occurred amid a widely criticized vote under military rule. The UN highlighted that the actual death toll could be higher due to communication blackouts and fear among witnesses. The election, held under military control, excluded opposition candidates and left many conflict zones, particularly areas with displaced groups and Rohingya minorities, without voting access. The brutal airstrikes have deepened the humanitarian crisis in Myanmar, raising alarms about the country's continued descent into violence under junta rule. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Colonel Sanjit Sirohi. He's an international affairs, international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how is Myanmar trying to, legitimize their government? And what are we to make of these reports that's coming in about lots of civilians being killed during this?
Tuma, good evening. Thank you very much for having me on your channel. Now, we have to understand that after coup, 5 years later, they are holding elections. And these elections are fast. Why I call it fast? Because there was no democratic process was followed. There have been airstrikes going on. And as you mentioned, there were more than 400 airstrikes. And the maximum numbers of civilians which were killed was in 2025. So it was just a rebranding and army rule in the name of civil government, but actually it is the government run by civilians but controlled by military personnel. So I don't think there is any change in the pattern, and there is no change. It is only the rebranding has been done of army rule to a civilian rule. And this violence has gone unabated, and there is no human rights have been totally violated. And out of 330 townships, only 263 went for voting, and in that too, most of the citizens either were not allowed to vote or they were forcefully asked to vote in favor of the candidates who are pro-government. Asuma.
And even though, they, regardless of all this, they have gone ahead with elections. So what now? How are governments, other countries, of course, in other countries supposed to handle or execute their relationship with this current government?
So I think there will be no change in the relationship between Myanmar and other countries because they may have held the elections. They may have gone through proper electoral process, but each and every country knows what type of process has been followed. And in spite of people being threatened, in spite of being feared, there were about more than 324 men and about 80 women who were detained, and they were detained for stupid reasons like online activity and other things. So I think everyone knows about it, even when the UN here is talking about that these elections were totally false and there were human rights violations even during elections. So I don't think there will be much difference in the diplomatic relations of other countries with Myanmar. Maybe one or two countries who are supporting this military junta in Myanmar, they may accept it. Otherwise, I don't think any other country is going to accept this election as fair and democratically elected government. Asuma.
Right, even if they don't accept it as fair, they will have to somehow engage, right? So how will other countries or governments balance that?
No, like there are two ways of doing it. First is that you have the relations with Myanmar and make sure there is some stability there. There is some semblance of stability in that region, because if you see in the Southeast Asian countries, Myanmar plays very important role, and so all other countries, members of the Asia, they also want that there should be stability in Myanmar, because unstable neighbor is of no use to any country. So I think they will maintain some sort of semblance as a diplomatic relations, but not much will be achieved by Myanmar by these elections. Asuma.
Right. And what will be the immediate effect of this current government taking over like this and legitimizing their election results?
No, they have already legitimized it. They have covered these elections in 3 phases. The last phase has just finished on Sunday. So they will legitimize it. They will appoint the president or the prime minister and the cabinet meeting. Other things will be there. But all those people will be totally controlled by the military junta. And this are like in any other country, like in Pakistan, everything is controlled by military. In Bangladesh, so far, they are saying that there is interim government, but once the elections are over, once the result comes out, then we will see. So similarly, military junta will be the actual people who will be conducting all this thing, will be controlling the departments. But yes, the face will be of the civilian government, and that will be shown to the international community that yes, we had elections, and now we have a civilian government. But that everybody knows that the civilian government which has won the election, they were all pro-military junta.
Right. With that, I would like to thank retired Colonel Sanjay Sirohi for joining us. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Africa. Paramilitary fighters have kidnapped children during their takeover of the Sudanese city of Al Fashir in October 2025 and in other attacks in the Darfur region over the course of Sudan's civil war, and in some cases killing their parents first. According to reports, the RSF is saying the families that the children would be used as slaves to herd animals. The RSF has been locked in war with Sudan's army since April 2023 over which side will run a country endowed with rich mineral reserves, plentiful arable land and Red Sea ports. Meanwhile, some Sudanese have responded. Let's listen into what they have shared.
يالده واحد عمره 10 سنة، واحد 11، واحد 12، واحد 13 سنة، 4 دول. وهي النادم ده الجنسه الدعم الصريح بعرباته، سحر بعربات ببحم الناس. وايدين العيال ده سايقونه زي ده ببحم الناس، هو راكب عربية، العيال ده من قدام سايقونه بالباحم. ليه خسه حتى الآن؟ ما شفت عيال ده وجوه ودد وين ما عرفت، لكن اتأكدت يعني ده سايقين. ساقوا وفات. بنت طويلة إلى ما زمزم.
اللي زمزم مشينا من زمزم مشينا بطريق كولغي، مشينا في كولغي يتعدوا لنا الدعامة، جونا عربية واثنين مواتر واثنين جمالة، عندنا غنم بعد الغنم ساقوم لنا في أطفال اثنين.
Now we move on to our next news. My colleague and correspondent Aditya Varawan has spoken to the Palestinian Foreign Affairs Minister Varsenaga Bekian as plans for Gaza reconstruction finalized. Let's take a look.
Palestinian Foreign Minister exclusively speaking to NewsX. Ma'am, thank you so much for talking to NewsX. Ma'am, my first question to you is, ma'am, what do you think, what could be, in what areas can India, play a role as far as the reconstruction of Gaza is concerned post this truce happens between Israel and Palestine? Your comments upon it, ma'am.
A lot that can India do. Israel is in need of everything you can think of, from immediate rehabilitation measures, immediate relief measures, to reconstruction. And in between, there's also a lot that can be done. We can have input in terms of the actual physical reconstruction of the buildings, the basic service institutions, or we can have issues related to providing artificial limbs to the thousands of Palestinians that have lost their limbs, the demining in Gaza, the removal of the rubble, you name it, there's a lot that can be done in Gaza.
Ma'am, if I would like to ask you, ma'am, since countries like UK, Canada, France, and Australia are on the verge of recognizing Palestine, do you think that this would, help with the Palestinian cause? And what do you think about this entire situation, ma'am?
They have already recognized, Canada, Australia have recognized, Britain has recognized. So what we want from all those that have recognized to commit to what international law says, to the rights of people to self-determination, moving us from where we are today to materializing the state on the ground.
Okay. Ma'am, if I may ask you, what are the nations which are the nations that have come forward, that have, decide that they have said that they will contribute to the reconstruction of Gaza. If you can name some, some of the nations who are proactively saying this, that we will, rebuild Gaza. If you can name some nations regarding that, ma'am.
There are many countries in Europe that have already voiced their intention to chip in, Arab countries, countries in Asia. The most important thing is to look at the plan and see where the interest of each country lies and where their niche is. If, for example, India is good in a certain aspect, then India should chip in towards that, so that we don't have duplication and we have all countries do whatever is of interest to them and whatever most benefits Gaza.
Ma'am, my next question to you is, ma'am, how do you view the constituents of the Board of Peace, which is meant for reconstruction of Gaza, as U.S. President Donald Trump has formed it? How do you see that Board of Peace? Many countries are joining that Board of Peace, which has been formed by U.S. President Donald Trump. How do you view that, the entire scenario?
First of all, the Board of Peace has to give us what is most priority for us right now, which is the cessation of the hostilities, the cessation of the war and the attacks on Gaza, and to have a permanent ceasefire. That is number one priority right now. The Board of Peace composition is yet, it remains to be seen, because, as you said, some countries have joined, some countries are challenging the mandate of the board. And until all of this is aired out, we will have to wait and see who joins and what would be the final mandate of this board as accepted by whoever joined the board.
Ma'am, do you think that even after the entire peace process has been completed and there is a full truce between Israel and Palestine, do you think that Hamas and Hezbollah will also prefer buying peace post that, because the bone of contention has been that Israel has been saying that recently only we saw that Hamas handed over the last Israeli hostages. So do you think that the situation will prevail normally even after the full truce has been completed between Israel and Hamas?
Well, the peace agreement that was signed was approved by the entities and the stakeholders, and there are guarantors for that peace agreement. And the agreement has to move on with all of its items as stipulated in the agreement, which means compliance by all parties, Israel included. So we hope to see that everyone takes the interest of the region, their own countries, their own projects. For us as Palestinians, the Palestinian National Project as the most important to preserve and move on accordingly.
Like my next question to you is, ma'am, what is your forward strategy? Are you like as far as the UN General Assembly is concerned? There have been many instances where the Palestinian leaders have been voicing raising their voice at the UN headquarters. For the recognition. So what is your forward forward strategy as far as making this issue of Palestine international on a global level? Already, it is a considerable issue at the global level. But what is your strategy if we talk about your plan of action at the UN General Assembly, ma'am?
Well, our plan of action entails whatever we can do to steadfast our people in Palestine, ensuring there is no displacement of Palestinians, neither from the Gaza Strip or the West Bank, because we want Palestinians to steadfast in their country, to build their country, to struggle for the independence of their country. So we will continue advocating for that. We will continue advocating on the recognition front, because there are still countries that have not recognized. And we will continue saying that whoever is for international law and says they are democratic and comply with international law and believe in the rights of people to self-determination, they should come forward and recognize the state of Palestine.
My next question to you is, how do you see India-Palestine ties, to move forward in the times to come? Already we know the diplomatic relations between India and Palestine have been excellent. So in the way forward in the next few years, how do you see the diplomatic relations between India and Palestine panning out, ma'am?
I hope the positive and the productive relation that has prevailed for decades will continue. This entails India continuing to support what it has supported for long, the two states and the independence of the state of Palestine, and it will continue with its development and humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people.
Thank you so much for talking to NewsX. So this was our Palestinian Foreign Minister exclusively in conversation with NewsX. This is Aditya Vadhavan reporting for NewsX with video journalist Avinash, Delhi.